Now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnhart. Here. Mr. Baroth. Here. Mr. Brew.
Here.
Chairman Delahanty.
Here.
Mrs. DeFlorio. Here. Mr. Felder. Here. Mr. Hebert.
Here.
Mr. Mafucci.
Here.
Mr. Marionetti.
Here.
Mr. Morelli.
Here.
Ms. Smith. Here. And President Carbone.
2021 and the December 3rd, 2020. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. The next item on the agenda is new business.
Item 21-0293, amending the 2021 Monroe County budget to transfer funds and authorize an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Mendon for paving services at a county-owned parking lot in Lehigh Valley Trail Park.
Moved by Legislator Hebert. Legislator Boyce, who unfortunately couldn't make it here with us. And while Legislator Boyce certainly wishes she could be here today, if there are any particular questions pertaining to the referral, Legislator Boyce would request to be submitted in writing to her office, and the answers will be provided prior to our next regularly scheduled legislative meeting. Legislator Boyce has taken the lead in coordinating with the town of Mendon and conducting the outreach involved with all stakeholders. And it is primarily within her district, and she would be happy to provide the most pertinent information on. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Oh, legislator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on some of the conversation last night, I did attend the recommendation. It appears that this project is really a capital project that should be part of the capital improvement. So I have a question for the administration. What concerns does the administration have with the scope of the project, why it's not part of the capital improvement plan, and the cost of the project?
Mr. Chairman, I may find that I need to tag team this answer with Director Meredith, but let me at least take a stab at addressing these questions. It is not unusual for a project like this, and I would agree, this is a capital project. It is not unusual for smaller capital projects, those less than, say, $100,000, to be accounted for in the operating budget, which suggests, however, that given that this body has passed at its July meeting, a cash capital funded capital project for the Parks Department that included paving a number of areas, parking lots, driveways, etc. That a project like this would fit very well within that capital project. And given that that legislation just passed at the July meeting, it probably would work better for this particular parking lot to be fit within that project, even with additional funding. And I say that because there's quite a laundry list of projects that need to be addressed. That $7.2 million capital fund that was just passed. And the scheduling of those projects have to be done in a prioritized manner. If by chance other projects within that capital fund have higher priority, at least if the dollars were in the capital project, they could roll forward to the next calendar year. If they remain in the operating budget, Mr. Chairman, they will expire December 31st. And I'll let Director Meredith respond if you would like to add anything.
Through the chair, I would just like to add that the capital projects in the $7.2 million were really focused on the deferred maintenance that we have through the park system. This parking lot was not brought to my attention that it needed work. It's a stone parking lot. It's not a paved parking lot that has gotten bad. So I would say it's a project that's lower on my priority list if categorize it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clarification purposes, through you to the administration. Finance Director Franklin, your recommendation is to transfer $63,000 from the current general fund to capital?
Mr. Chairman, I guess before I would go on record making that recommendation, I would want some concurrence either with Environmental Services or our DOT director that the cost of a milling and resurfacing of a parking lot of this size, if $63,000 is the appropriate price. Normally, this type of project is a public works project. Normally, it's bid out, it's spec'd and then bid out. I'm not sure how the price tag was determined in this particular case.
Project would be lower on the priority list of the Parks Department for an intermunicipal agreement to allow the town of Mendon to do the paving, something that could be
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, an IMA would be something that would be possible. I believe this body has already given the administration approval to do IMAs for projects on projects like this. I think one of the points Mr. Franklin was trying to make was this is really extremely unusual in terms of how it's done. In effect, there has been no county administration involvement in terms of scoping out the project. So in effect, the cost estimate, and again, I'm not, I don't know the Mendon Highway Superintendent, and I'm certainly not questioning his motives or his character or anything, but just from a standard business practice, we wouldn't typically have the person who was going to be contracting with us to do the work go out on his own without any oversight or any involvement on the county in terms of determining the cost and the scope of that project.
possible, but maybe the details. Thank you.
Legislator Mafucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have one more follow-up question. So clearly, it appears there needs to be a little more community to ensure that this project is costed out properly, that it's really necessary. So my follow-up question would be, does the administration have any idea whether the entire lot needs to be paved? Does part of it need to be paved and the other part gravel? Time, that kind of thing.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. The county need for a parking area in this site is very limited. It would be needed to accommodate access to the trailhead, which in my discussions with the Parks Department, Director Meredith could answer this or correct me if I'm wrong, is somewhere in the neighborhood of, if we were to do this, probably about 15 parking spots is what we would need at a peak time for something like this. But no, this agreement and this project doesn't speak to who would be responsible for maintenance of the parking lot and also from snow removal and snow clearance. And that's something we do not do now under the current setup at that parking lot.
Thank you. I have a I have other language for it, but I'm not looking to be difficult. Because this is really, truly why we shouldn't have this sort of funding process. Mentioned earlier that, perhaps the town of Mendon sees a quote urgent need. County as a whole. I'd say that's absolutely true. That there's less. I've voted in favor of a few of these funding processes. For example, when we talked about purchasing firefighting equipment, there was talked about this urgent need. Fire. Okay, and that's fair. But a parking lot is not an urgent need. A gravel parking lot is not an urgent need. In the referral, quote, the lot is deteriorating but has not received any attention from the county, end quote. 5 years, 10 years since it was first established? Why are we doing it now? Yes, it's a good thing to upgrade a parking lot, fine. Fine. But I am not going to vote for something where someone has said, okay, we can do this job for you for this amount of money. We have a process in place for a reason. Legislation, well, this referral, and this whole funding process, what circuits is on a regular basis. Am I willing to overlook this for emergencies or things that absolutely need to be done? This is not the case. And I have some questions for the maker of the motion. Status of this particular parking lot. Is it a 1? Was it a 10? Somewhere between? I know there's no answer to it. But that wasn't done. How many other tiny parking lots are out there in the same shape or form that hasn't got the special attention? That's the role of the county. The county administration prioritize to lay out what needs to be done first, second, third, 100th, etc. We're just one individual, or in this case, 2 individuals. Not good enough. So I don't have any questions. I did have some for the maker of the motion, but there's no point asking these questions for the administration or I'm disappointed we're still doing this, and I recognize why we're doing this. I'm disappointed in that too. I'll be voting against it, and
Other.
Seems to me there seems to be some disconnect between the park department and people in some of these communities regarding what is needed in their parking community. I know the park director goes to the list. I'm not going to blame him for that, but I think it's necessary to maybe sort of, if he hasn't already started, to go around to all these communities and really speak to them and see what they think. And take a look at what's there. And as we move forward, try to prevent these things. So if we have a capital do that. We're not come behind that and say, okay, well, we need. That suggestion I would make is between now and, we got 3 weeks, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration, any quick questions to follow up? You said this would be a low priority. Was this something that was even considered in the $7.2 million of this project? Was this parking, through you, Mr. Chairman, was this parking lot considered for the 7.2 million?
Through the chair, this parking lot is not on any list that I have as far as.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take a moment to thoughts on this and just as a thought for the administration. Had you brought or made the legislature aware intentions of bringing forward a multi-project legislators aware of it, considered, and they may well have been rejected. But it would be a way to avoid this type of urgent thing. I believe that the session part of the reason that came to mind was that series of projects that was brought forth. Had you come to us and said, hey, do you guys have anything that maybe we're not thinking about in your district? Perhaps that could be a approach to see if we could.
Through the chair to the administration, it was mentioned that there potentially were other trailheads or small lots of the same nature in other county parks. Do we have a list of how many other trailheads or small lots of this nature there even are? If not, could we perhaps get an itemized list of the, just to kind of see the scope of what else is out there?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I think what shouldn't get lost in all of this is this initiative that the administration is undertaking is in response to decades-long neglect to the park system. There was a tendency or a preference for shiny new objects, so that we were building $1 million lodges that were sort of viewed as jewels of the park system, and at the same time neglecting some very basic structures. And I think we've articulated that well, that there were lodges that were built in the 60s that had no investments at all in that. And I think to Legislator Hebert's point of, well, geez, if you just come to us and, you know, we might have had ideas. The list that we put together initially was somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 million of what needed to be repaired. So while the $7 million is a very significant infusion of cash to make very needed repairs, by no means did that $7 million fix everything. As a matter of fact, it fixed probably a little bit less than half of what the Parks Department had identified in terms of a need for this. So, and the other part of this is to, you know, the nature of how these referrals are being presented to us are troubling, when there's no involvement from the county in a cost estimate for something like this, it's not a good business practice. And again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. We basically have gone to the person who was going to be billing us for the work to come up with what the cost of that was. And there's been no review, input, or even defined scope of what it is that this individual was responding to in terms of the outline of the bid. We could send people out there and try to do a general inspection or a general estimate of what he was talking about doing, but it's just not a good business practice, and that in and of itself is particularly troubling for the administration. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I thought the question was asked to try to have a better understanding of what the need of the park system was. We can get you a list of parking lots and trailheads. Would you like that list to give a condition of what they all are to, ones that should be repaired, or you just want a comprehensive list of everything? A comprehensive list of everything. Okay, we'll get that for you. Thank you.
I heard for the first time just now from you, Mr. McCann. I would request that in the future, when you know things like that, while that you let us know that when you bring forward the first batch, so that later on I'm not thinking like, what's this? Up front, say, we got $15 million worth of projects we need to do. Here are the highest priority ones. We've only got $7.2 million to spend, and we probably will be back to you in the future looking for more.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chairman, I don't think I said we were going to be back for more funding. Maybe I misspoke if I said that, but I'm pretty sure I didn't say that we were going to be back for another bite of the apple with this. I was just trying to underscore the need of what we did, but thank you.
Legislator Barat. Go ahead, legislator, sorry.
The fact that you didn't say you would be back for more leads me to believe that you're going to be continuing to neglect our parks. It's not something that this body wants to do. So if there is actually another 7.8 suggestion was simply that the first time you do it in the future, tell us if there are additional needs that haven't been met. My impression was that we're doing a great thing for our parks.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we welcome your concern, legislator.
Barat.
Legislators to identify issues in their district, go to the administration, say, here's a problem with the departmental head through the deputy county I had to do that under the Republican administration. I have to do it under the Democratic administration. And, believe it or not, and I was oftentimes shocked. Yes, the administration would respond. This body has refused to meet with the administration on a regular basis. This body relegates all communications to this meeting, the legislative meeting, and letter. So will people get frustrated? Absolutely. Will distrust increase? Yes. But we've been invited repeatedly to meet with the administration, and we have refused to do so. I think the onus is not on the administration to come to us and say, hey, you guys have any ideas? They've done that. In fact, it's on us to go to them, and preferably in a meeting to discuss, here's a need, perhaps for paving a new bridgehead parking lot. What can be done about it? No, we don't do it that way. We make it as formal, as contentious as possible. And that's unnecessary, and that's not a shell game. Environment we're finding ourselves in, and I don't think it's helpful. If we have questions, for God's sakes, get the leadership together and talk. Don't get paid to put forth referrals. Once, I'd love to put it back in again. About 8 years ago, I put forth a referral, which I knew wasn't going to pass, that we should not put anyone's name on parks and buildings and signs. We didn't need credit for it. We shouldn't do that. Down now, who knows? But it's not about us. It's not our responsibilities to our people. I think we need to actually get over ourselves and actually get together and meet. Frankly, the leadership of the majority, to meet in person. The office is made. Hell game. We're not doing our jobs. I'll be voting.
Sorry, that really doesn't have any relevance here. But my question, I guess my comment again is the expediency of which things are done under capital improvement projects. 5 years, the West Golf Course Circle Park has been approved capital improvement project irrigated, okay? I'm not even sure if the contracts have been cut yet. I don't think there's any purchase materials and there haven't been any shovels in the ground. So if we're talking about a need for something, at least the community contingency fund provides a mechanism to get things done in a very expedient type of way. If nothing else, right? Whether this is going to be around next year or not, I don't know. Frankly, I really don't care. But as long as it's there and we can identify that these needs are present, I say, why not use it? So I guess my comment is because the CIP, because it wasn't even on the radar of the Parks Department, and I completely get it. And I completely agree with Deputy County Executive McCann's assessment of the neglect that the parks have received over previous administrations. And again, I applaud the $7.2 million that this administration decided to invest in. But it's just when it comes to a capital improvement plan, I'm pre-programmed to say, my God. Part of my reasoning for explaining my vote. Another one, process-related question I would have. So with the town providing, and I'll just call this a budget price. So how does that move from a budget price? Obviously, it's not a formally quoted price in the county. I know county does business in a lot of different ways by coming up with an engineered budget price, and then they let out bids come in, and final number is established. So with the town of Mendon doing this work, could the town of Mendon be sole source to use it because they are a municipality to do that work on the parking lot?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So one of the things we've looked at as a result of this, we don't know what standards this cost estimate was prepared to. We don't know if it properly addressed stormwater management concerns and things like that. What we're hopeful, but to answer your question, yes, they could be considered sole source through an IMA. But what we're also going to try to do before full legislature is we have a term services contract with an asphalt company that we will try to get them out there in the next couple weeks and actually have a defined area and a little more of a formal proposal or cost estimate with this. But the answer to that was a long way of saying yes to your question, but I also wanted to give you a context of what our process was.
Said, would it be possible, would the administration, would it be possible to have those things in a formal quotation from the Mentor County Department so that we would be assured that these costs are going to be allocated? I guess my question is, are we in a position after the consultation with your term agreement engineer, if we would have enough information to go forward?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, somebody from the administration will reach out to the town of Mendon Highway Superintendent and get more specifics on how he came up with this cost estimate so that we know that we have an apples to apples comparison.
I felt confident in the, I'm prepared to table this if we.
I would move to table this item until the.
Let's take a 5-minute recess. Legislator, let's just do a 5-minute recess and we'll come right back.
I'm asking the law department for clarification.